They'll tell you that love is everything. That if you just love harder, give more, stay gentle, people will return the favor. They'll protect you, respect you, never cross your boundaries. But Machiavelli didn't buy that story. He didn't see love as safety. He saw it as exposure, as a weapon that's only dangerous if you're the one holding it without a shield. Because when a man leans too heavily on love, he makes himself vulnerable to the people who understand exactly how to twist it. The man who's feared survived, not because love is inherently weak, but because love is blind, and the world isn't. Once you lead with love, you stop leading with strategy. You love your partner, your family, your friend, and in that love, you begin confessing. You become soft. You forgive quickly. You overlook things you'd never tolerate from anyone else. You stop filtering. You stop protecting your ground. Because you think, if I would never hurt them, they won't hurt me. But Machiavelli would smirk at that. He knew better. He knew even the ones closest to you are capable of betrayal, especially when they're certain you won't push back. The real threat doesn't come from your enemies. It comes from the people you've made comfortable. Enemies still fear your silence, but those you love, they grow entitled to your kindness. They expect your loyalty as a given. They demand forgiveness on their timeline. They resent you the moment you draw a line. Because when love is unfiltered, it's not connection, it's access. Access to your time, your peace, your forgiveness, your identity. And sooner or later, that access is taken for granted. That's why Machiavelli didn't preach eliminating love. He preached mastering it. He saw love not as something to be avoided, but something to be controlled. You love, but with limits, with structure, with awareness. Because unchecked love turns into emotional nudity. And the most dangerous place a powerful person can be is emotionally exposed. Here's the truth. Being cold-blooded doesn't mean you're unkind. It means you're conscious. You're conscious of how people act once they get too close. You're conscious of what you're handing over every time you lead with your feeling. You're conscious of the entitlement that grows when affection goes unchallenged. Machiavelli understood what most people never do, that even the ones who truly love you will still hurt you by accident. And the ones who only stick around for what they gain, they'll hurt you on purpose. So, the answer isn't to shut off emotionally. The answer is to stop treating love like a compass. Because once emotions steer the ship, logic goes overboard. And when that happens, your influence weakens. Think about it. Ever wondered why your advice to your family gets ignored? Why your friends stop showing up after they've gotten what they needed? Why your partner no longer worries about losing you? It's because they've seen the pattern. They know your heart will override your boundaries. You'll be the first to apologize. You'll break your own rule. You'll explain, defend, and try again. And Machiavelli would call that a mistake. Because once people know you won't enforce limits, they stop respecting them. It is better to be feared than loved. If you cannot be both, that's not just about governing a country. That applies to relationships too. But being feared doesn't mean being a tyrant. It means being respected enough that someone thinks twice before crossing the line. In close relationships, fear feels wrong. So, you pull back. You start avoiding conflict. And that's when they start winning. When you avoid discomfort, you invite disrespect. You lower your standards. You tolerate behaviors you'd never let slide from anyone else. You become silent. Not because it's strategic, but because it's easier than defending your values. But that silence isn't peace. It's just your discomfort turned inward. And once someone becomes comfortable with your discomfort, they test it, then they manipulate it, then they exploit it. You don't have to stop loving. You just need sharper boundaries, the kind that hurt a little when touched. Let people feel your warmth, but know there's a wall behind it. Because once your love becomes unlimited, so does your suffering. Strangers won't break you. It's always the ones you held closest. And Machiavelli didn't see that as cynicism. He saw it as truth. He wasn't suspicious. He was strategic. He knew that the people who know your boundaries best are also the ones most capable of pushing past them. Not because they despise you, but because they no longer fear the cost. When fear leaves a relationship, respect often follows. Let's talk about what Machiavelli might call the 5 loyalty tests. These are the small patterns that reveal whether someone values you or just your vulnerability. Test 1. Entitlement. They stop saying thank you. Stop asking before taking. Stop considering the effort you're putting in. Because in their mind, you're already theirs. You're expected to give, to show up, to always say yes. And when you don't, you're suddenly cold, suddenly selfish. But Machiavelli would say, let them be upset. That reaction isn't heartbreak. It's withdrawal symptoms from unearned access. Test 2. Guilt as a weapon. You say no. They get emotional. You protect your peace. They bring up the past. They use your love as leverage, not because they want resolution, but because they want reverse. Because if guilt can break your boundary once, they'll use it again. And if you cave, that's not love, it's emotional blackmail. Test 3. The loyalty loop. You've been consistent, caring, dependable. But when that loyalty isn't mutual, it becomes expected. They stop checking in. They only come around when it serves them. And when you finally pull away, they panic, not because they miss you, but because they just lost their emotional safety net. Machiavelli would say, if your loyalty is predictable, it will be exploited before it's appreciated. Test 4. Just this once. The most dangerous phrase. It starts small. A favor. A forgotten promise. A missed apology. Just this once. But you agree. And now they know you're bendable. They'll stretch your boundaries under the illusion of urgency. But what they're really doing is measuring your breaking point. And if you don't break, they'll just keep bending you. Test 5. You're too harsh. You pull back. They call you cold. You assert yourself. They say you've changed. You stop being endlessly patient. Suddenly, you're the villain. But they don't miss your kindness. They miss having access to the version of you that let everything slide. And now that version's gone. They call it cruelty. But it's not cruelty. It's clarity. And Machiavelli would see it for what it is. He'd say, the closer someone stands to you, the more they believe you'll absorb their chaos. And when you don't, they'll call you cold. But that coldness, that's your defense. That's your line in the sand. Because a man who tries to be warm to everyone ends up surrounded by people who love how easy he is to burn. So what's the answer? It's not to stop loving. It's to stop proving your love. You don't need to explain your distance. You don't need to defend your detachment. You don't need to convince anyone that you still care while protecting yourself. You just enforce your line. Silently, consistently, without flinching. Let them talk. Let them say you've changed. Let them call you distant, cold, dramatic. Because the moment they realize the old version of you is gone, they'll have 2 options, evolve or exit. And either one of those options puts you in a stronger position than before. Being cold-blooded doesn't mean you don't feel. It means you don't hand over your emotional center to people who haven't earned it. It means you don't let others use your empathy as a backdoor into your peace. And it means you stop being the emotional landfill for people who refuse to manage their own chaos. Machiavelli never built walls just to keep people out. He built systems, filters, tests, quiet requirements that only the worthy passed. And even the ones who passed, they had to keep proving it. No one stayed just because they once earned a seat. They stayed because they kept earning it. So how do you build that kind of power? That quiet, unshakable control. Rule 1. Never explain your emotional boundary. You don't owe a story when you go silent. You don't owe a justification when you say no. You don't owe a breakdown of your peace plan just because someone doesn't like the distance. The more you explain, the more you invite negotiation. And Machiavelli would say, never negotiate your position, just hold it. When someone says, Why are you acting different? Or why didn't you check in? You don't explain. You just respond. I've recalibrated. That's it. Let them sit with the silent. Because the moment you stop bleeding explanations, you start commanding respect. Rule 2. Set consequences, not conditions. Most people plead for better behavior. Don't speak to me like that again. Please don't hurt me. If you do this, I'll get upset. But Machiavelli wouldn't beg. He'd design a system that makes disrespect expensive. You don't say, please don't lie. You show them that lying means you vanish. And when they panic, you don't come running. You return when, and only when, you decide. Boundaries don't whimper. They don't plead. They act. That's what gives them power. Rule 3. Stop negotiating through emotion. Once someone realizes you spiral under pressure, that you fold when they cry, that you chase when they go silent, they stop respecting your intellect. They start playing your feelings. Machiavelli would never let his mind be hijacked by someone else's emotions. He knew once someone could tug your heartstring, they could bypass your brain. You stay calm. You don't send long emotional messages. You don't break down your feelings mid-conflict. You don't re-enter conversations you've already left. You make your silence your sword. You make your calmness your shield. And if they want access to the warmth behind that shield, they have to earn it again. Rule 4. Define your boundaries in black and white. Too many people adjust their standards based on who's asking, based on how tired they are, based on how long they've known the person. That's not love. That's inflation. Emotional inflation. And like money, when you print too much compassion without limit, its value crashes. You need rules like, I don't respond to yelling. Once I ask for space, I take it. I don't reward apologies without change. And then most importantly, you follow through, without exceptions. People don't test strong walls. They test weak doors. Machiavelli didn't punish often. But when he did, it was exact. It was cold. It was final. And that's how he stayed in power. You must do the same, or they'll keep gambling with your forgiveness. Rule 5. Stop fearing the word harsh. This is where most people fold. They know someone is crossing the line. They know they're being drained. But they hesitate, because the moment they assert themselves, they're called rude, cold, arrogant. Society has taught us that boundaries are brutality, that silence is selfish, that discipline is cruelty. But Machiavelli never feared being labeled cruel. He feared being seen as easy. Let them call you what they want. Let them label your strength however they need to make themselves feel better. Because here's the truth. When you fear your reputation more than your reality, you surrender your power to the opinions of people who benefit from your weakness. You're not being cruel. You're being clear. Love without limits becomes sacrifice. Sacrifice without recognition becomes slavery. And Machiavelli would never die on someone else's emotional battlefield. He'd pull back. Observe. Return only when respected. That's not being cold. That's being in control. This is where most people struggle. They say things like, but I don't want to become numb. I'm afraid I'll lose myself if I go cold. That fear is real, but it's based on a false idea that strategy and feeling are opposites. They're not. Machiavelli didn't stop feeling. He just learned how to control the flow. Because in a world that's always trying to hijack your emotions, full exposure is not bravery, it's recklessness. Cold-blooded strategy doesn't mean heartless. It means deliberate. It means you decide when and how your emotions move, not anyone else. You don't shut off love. You put a gate in front of it. And that gate has a rule. Only those who show up with consistency get access to my softness. Because your affection is not free. Your care is not a handout. And your warmth, that's earned, not assumed. The final mental shift is this. You have to be okay being misunderstood. This is what stops most people from stepping into real power. They want to be clear and respected, but also adored. They want to be disciplined, but still liked. But Machiavelli would say, If you need everyone to approve of your growth, you've already lost your freedom to evolve. You will be called cold. You will be misunderstood. You will lose people who only love the version of you that bent and bled on command. Let them go. Their discomfort is not your responsibility. It's just the shock of losing access to a version of you that was too easy to hurt. Cold-blooded doesn't mean you stop loving. It means you stop leaking love everywhere. Detached doesn't mean disconnected. And being strong doesn't make you selfish. But they'll say all of that the moment you stop giving endlessly, apologizing for protecting yourself and overextending your care. Suddenly, you're too sharp, too quiet, too much, and that's where most people crumble. They either keep bending to keep everyone happy, or they go numb and disappear. But Machiavelli walked a different path. He called it strategic empathy. He stayed human. But he never let his humanity be used against him. So how do you stay powerful without becoming the villain in their story? How do you walk the line between caring and collapsing? You master what Machiavelli lived by. Control without cruelty. Detachment without disconnection. Step 1. Define your intention, not their perception. Ask yourself, am I setting this boundary to punish or to protect? Am I walking away because I'm heartless or because I've been drained for too long? Am I silent because I'm passive-aggressive or because I've already explained myself 10 times? If the answer is self-preservation, then you're not wrong. You're just done performing. Machiavelli didn't obsess over being perceived as good. He focused on staying in position and maintaining power without malice. That's rare. That's your lane now. Step 2. Show mercy, but hold your line. Forgiveness isn't weakness. It's when you erase your standards that it becomes a threat to your own stability. You can give someone another chance. You can offer support to someone you've pulled away from. But if they haven't changed, truly changed, then your kindness is just feeding the cycle. Mercy is noble. But mercy without structure is just a reset button for dysfunction. So give but don't forget. Be kind, but don't erase the consequence. Offer softness, but never surrender yourself in the process. Step 3. Control your presence, not just your distance. People think power is in pulling away. Machiavelli knew it's in how you show up. Brief, composed, impactful. You walk in, you speak clearly, and you exit with grace. That calm exit leaves a stronger mark than 1,000 speeches. You don't need drama. You don't need closure. You just shift the energy. You become the one they remember, not the one they can manipulate. Your absence becomes felt. Your silence becomes respected. Not out of fear, but because it has weight. Step 4. Maintain standards, not control. You can't force someone to respect you. But you can make disrespect cost them access. You don't beg for apologies. You don't demand explanation. You don't chase clarity. You let people experience the silence that follows crossing a line. And in that silence, they either rise or they fade. Either way, you win, because you don't need to dominate. You just need to protect your energy. And that only happens when your standards stay still, even when your emotions try to move them. Step 5. Make your kindness selective, not exhaustive. You're not here to give endlessly. You're here to give wisely. That means kindness comes after observation, after patience, after discernment. You still love, you still care, but not for free, and not without terms. If they call it transactional, so be it. Unconditional giving sounds noble, until it's used as a weapon against your peace. So you set emotional exit strategy. You ask, if this goes wrong, how do I get out with my sanity intact? Because self-control is the highest form of generosity. Step 6. Stop defending your boundary. Enforce them. They'll say you've switched up, that you've become distant, that you've gone cold. Let them. You're not here to debate your transformation. You're here to embody it. Power isn't proven in back-and-forth arguments. It's revealed through silent consistency. If they miss the old you, let them remember, but don't let them revisit. Not until they've evolved too. Because growth should be a requirement, not a coincidence. Balance isn't about finding a middle ground. It's about building a filter, a gate. You're not a stone. You're a mirror. You reflect people clearly. You give warmth, but only to those who have earned it. You remain calm, even when chaos enters the room. That's not detachment. That's Machiavellian empathy. Strategic, measured, unshakable. You've learned the signs. You've seen how people use guilt, how they weaponize your softness, how they pull you close only to drain you. But now you've outgrown the version of yourself that was too generous to be respected. Now it's time to make the shift permanent. And that's not about speeches. It's about rituals. Habit 1. Move without announcement. You don't tell people you're stepping back. You don't warn them you're focusing on yourself. You don't need to post that you're done explaining. You just slow the reply. You stop re-engaging. You protect your peace without turning it into a performance. Real boundaries are quiet. They don't beg for understanding. They are written in the consistency of your actions. Machiavelli didn't ask people to understand his silence. He made sure they felt it. Habit 2. Stay polite. Never overfamiliar. Your warmth should not be a default setting. It should be earned. And re-earned. Greet with calm. Compliment with intention. Leave while you're still respected. That restraint, that composure. It makes you untouchable. The overly familiar man is easy to manipulate, but the man who remains precise, even in kindness, is feared in the best way. Your cold-blooded edge doesn't come from being mean. It comes from being structured. Habit 3. Reflect before reacting. Someone disappoints you. You pause. Someone disrespects you. You calculate. You don't explode. You don't spiral. You don't immediately confront. You log it. You shift accent. Being cold-blooded isn't about being emotionless. It's about putting thought in front of feeling. That pause, that calm filter is your new weapon. And when everyone else is panicking, your stillness becomes your dominance. Habit 4. Never reopen what you closed. Without requalification, you ended something for a reason. Don't go back just because it's been a while. Don't re-enter a connection just because they apologized. Time doesn't heal betrayal. Standards do. If they haven't shown growth, then you haven't missed anything. And if you go back before they've changed, you're not reconnecting, you're repeating. So if they want access again, let them prove why. Habit 5. Treat your peace like a strategy, not a slogan. You're not doing this for likes. You're not promoting your growth. You're embodying it. Cold-blooded isn't a flex. It's a quiet lifestyle. You don't need to post quotes about boundary. You don't need to prove your detachment. You just live it. You let your results speak louder than your captions. Because real power is felt, not explained. That's the Machiavellian finish line. Total control. No announcement. No approval. Just results. Because this world doesn't reward over-explanation. It rewards consistency. It doesn't care how loving you are. It cares how solid you stay when love is used against you. And it won't honor your vulnerability unless it's backed by structure. You're not cold-blooded because you've stopped feeling. You're cold-blooded because you've finally started filtering. And from here on out, that filter stays up, not to keep people out, but to test who's worthy of getting in, because your warmth is valuable. And anything valuable must be protected, not just with feeling, but with strategy. Machiavelli never taught us how to shut down. He taught us how to wake up, how to love with our eyes open, with our walls built, and with our standards sharp enough to draw blood when crossed. That's not cruelty. That's clarity. And that's how you keep your power, without ever needing to raise your voice again.